thing I want to say about that is, oh yeah, I can't believe, nope, I mean in my whole life, 50 years, nobody has ever suggested to me back home that, oh, in the middle of the hot summer of the South or whatever in the United States, go to Cape Town where it's winter time.
I know.
And it'll be 60 degrees. It'll be like San Diego.
No one's ever
and the food will be
suggested.
delicious. The lodging will be affordable. You get, a real city and cultural experience, and it's relaxing, and you just have a great time. Nobody has ever suggested that. But
I've heard so many people actually warning me about how bad the violence is going to be, and it's very unsafe that you're going to South Africa, and watch out, and just a lot of
and all that might
doom
still
and-
happen to us. Who knows? But
Welcome aboard. You're on Lady Grey. Pull up a seat and listen in to an unscripted, unedited conversation between two seminary-trained published authors who have been married 20 years and still love talking together. We are looking for treasure and sharing what we find through conversations. And for first listeners, this Lady Grey is our catamaran. This is our first conversation actually moved aboard on Lady Grey. And we want to chat with you tonight on what it's been like to move to South Africa. Good evening, Dale.
good evening, Jonalyn. It's so nice. So we've transitioned from back porch conversations, which we plan on doing on the back porch of our boat, but it made more sense to simply shift the name over to our adventures of what we're thinking about and what we're discovering on Lady Grey. So now it's the Lady Grey podcast.
Right, and we're still going to be having the same meaningful conversations back and forth, because that's something we do whether we're recording
That's
them
right.
or not.
But I love that we can reflect on things that we're discovering,
Yes.
and that we might reflect on other cultures and give our own opinions of things and things we're learning, as well as things we can criticize. Because
Yeah.
it's all about trying to arrive at a truth and healthiness, as we all can become more appropriately human in God's green world.
Yeah, or blue world if you're
Green
spending
and
a lot
blue.
of time.
Green and blue. Right now, the marina color is green.
Yeah, that's true. Right now the boys are getting ready for bed, and they are in their port hull, and you can hear some of the motors of the boat in the background. So this is very authentic. We're sitting here at the salon area around the kitchen table, and
We used to do van life.
yeah,
And it's wild, the comparisons of this to van life. Although with the van, we didn't go out more than 4 to 6 weeks at a time on road trips. But when we were talking about the sailboat with the boys and comparing the sizes, at first they're like, "Oh, if it's like the van, we do not want to do it, Mom and Dad."
Yeah,
because we made them
pretty tight.
sleep on hammocks. It was super, super cramped. Loved how nimble the van was in how small it was, but the boat we're on now, is like each hull is twice the length of the van, and then you can live on the roof of a boat. You can enjoy being on the outside, and you can't do that in a van. So it's really, it feels so luxurious to have some type of space, where everybody can go to their own little hole and disappear for a while.
it does feel luxurious. I am glad we did van life because it prepared me to survive and thrive with less, to have my own tiny kit for watercolor painting, for example, and to know how to downsize clothing and books. But in the van, I could never get away, and that was really hard for me, and I know hard for everyone else. And on the boat, we can get away from each other if we need to, and we also have the dinghy, which we can take for a little ride to get away, or just go to shore and walk around, and that's
That's
been
right.
really nice.
I love that.
But I didn't want to spend. Oh, go ahead.
I do want to say, the sailboat is, when you're not on a sailboat, it sounds like such an exotic thing. But the reality is, it's still glamping. And like an average
Yeah.
house is actually more glamorous in many ways than a sailboat that's going to distant shores. But what's great about the sailboat and why we're doing it is that it's something that we can go to distant shore. That's our goal, is to seek out treasures, not to be comfortable. And this is like a really nice floating RV, and it allows us to take care of ourselves, but we really like the fact that it gives us a chance to voyage.
Yep. There are things we're doing without. Like, we're always keeping an eye on the electricity load that we're using, and whether or not we'll have enough to run the heaters the whole night, and at what temperature, and do we have enough electricity to make a loaf of bread. We had to wait on that this morning because we're not plugged into shore power.
That's right.
But we haven't just moved to this boat and changed from land to sea, but we have changed cultures. And so I know part of me, I don't want to make too many judgments about what it's like to sail and live on a sailboat, because I've only been doing it for 2.5 weeks. And I don't know if some of the experiences I'm having on Lady Grey are actually a result of living in South Africa, or if they are directly connected to boat life. I know some of them are boat life specific, but there's been a huge culture shock for us moving to South Africa and noticing treasures here and learning how to fit into the culture and letting the culture teach us new things about ourselves and about being American.
It's huge. Yes, it's huge because it's a huge transition to move on to a boat, because you're always thinking, how do I get what I need? And how do I accommodate and adjust to all that? Most people know what it's like to move into a new house. But the idea of being in a new town, a new country, a new culture, and on a boat.
And it's not even just a new country, because we've traveled to different countries. It's a new continent, and it feels like a different continent.
It is a lot of transitions. We're always thinking about not only how do we provide for ourselves, but where do you get the thing you need to provide for and make sure that it's the right thing? Because everything here is called different.
I know. When we were sick, one of the very good examples was the electrician who kept coming onto our boat. Her name's Aletta, and she told us, you need to get this and this. And I looked at her like, how am I going to remember those names, first of all, and what are those things that I'm supposed to be getting? And basically, we found out later, it was their form of...
it's called Energade. Or Energade.
I feel like I'm
like, she'd say Energade. I'm like, go get some Energade. In the South African lilt, go get some Energade. And I'm like, what's that? They're like, oh, it's a drink. Oh, okay. What does it do? Well, it replenishes your electrolytes. And of course, I go back into my Rolodex of memory of electrolytes. That's always what they did with Gatorade. Energade. I bet they spoofed Gatorade. And sure enough, we went right down to the market, got some Energade, and it just looks like energy and Gatorade mixed.
Yes.
And it's exactly what it is. It is Gatorade in South African form.
And it is, it's...
It even says sports drink on it.
It's wonderful to know the proper terms for getting the things you need, but you don't get airdropped in knowing this stuff. And just basic things like that are hard to figure out. You have to ask people. I mean, it's not an easy Google search. Like, what is the comparable Gatorade while you're in South Africa along the ocean? No, it's not.
Kidding.
It's not a fast find.
But you could find KFCs. I think KFC stays in business globally because of how many are in South Africa.
And we asked someone,
everywhere.
Do you know what KFC stands for? They're like, yeah, Kentucky Fried Chicken. And do you know what Kentucky is? They're like,
a farm.
Is it a chicken farm? It's chicken farm.
A chicken farm.
Someplace in the United States.
We're like, it's a state. Kentucky's a state. Like California is a state. Like, oh.
We were told that's like saying California Fried Chicken, and then they got it and they laughed. They thought that was really hilarious.
So funny.
There's more Kentucky Fried Chickens here than McDonald's or any other American fast food.
I have not seen any other fast food places
I saw one McDonald's in
as
Cape
prolific
Town.
as KFC, and they all say KFC on them.
I know.
And they're nice buildings. I mean, honestly, it's like, whoa, they've nailed the market here.
Yeah, I guess a lot of people in South Africa like fried chicken. Sounds like someone's taking a shower. That's a long
I don't know if anybody, probably.
As well.
I don't know if anybody can hear the pump going on the recording, but who cares? Keep going.
Well, I was going to say some of the things I have really appreciated about South African culture are the different way they move through the day. And when we first arrived here in Cape Town, we noticed that there were not any clocks at our Airbnb rental in Cape Town. And we weren't sure if that was just a specific thing to the family who decorated that Airbnb or if it's actually a South African thing. And then moving here to Nyasna, which is a small seaside, kind of a touristy town. I mean, there's people who are here from Saudi Arabia on vacation to escape the heat.
If you look at a map, it's near the bottom tip of the entire African continent. Near it.
Yeah, it's like the center. It's the center coastal town. It has a feel of just a getaway ocean resort. But anyways, my point is, I've been asking a lot of different people about what makes Africa unique for a watercolor series I'm working on about South Africa. And something that came up this week was a local here said if there's one thing Africans have in abundance, it's time. There's no scarcity of time in South Africa. And that's why, he said, you'll see South Africans standing in a queue, which is a line, for hours.
He said 12 hours.
12 hours.
So they'll stand in a queue for 12 hours and be like, yeah, that's just what we do. No problem.
And they do not complain. They do not tap their toes. They're not huffing and puffing and getting twitchy. I just can't even imagine Americans doing that.
Well, it's super inefficient. That's one reason why. We even talked about that. We joked about it with this person about the when we tried to extend our visa, and we're still waiting for it, and how many physical papers that they needed in quadruplicate. And we had to keep going off to the printer's office and getting more and more of it because they're like, oh, you need this one in quadruplicate too. Like, can't you just like apply one piece of paper to all four of us? Nope. I'm like, can we do this digitally? Nope. And it's so inefficient. It has to go through like, I don't know, 10 different hands, and they're like, each one has like 60 pages they have to go through just to look at it, just to put a little initial on it, put it in some file. They were joking that there are literally paper files in places that nobody will ever look at for the history of humanity, but they all have them stored away because they love their paperwork and they don't mind wasting time on it.
He said that's actually one of the legacies left by colonialism, is that not just the Brits, but the Portuguese and the Spanish and the French, everybody, all the colonials who came to Africa left a legacy of bureaucracy and paperwork.
That's right. They did.
They are still enforcing and reaping the consequences of.
Well, and then they created a workforce that had to maintain all the bureaucracy. So as soon as you like go digital, you're going to lose a lot of workers are going to lose their jobs.
It's job security to keep the paperwork moving or growing. But you know, those are kind of the negative sides of the abundance of time. The positive sides for me is that I feel like if my soul were a piece of fabric in America, was starched and ironed around like a stiff collar, I feel like somebody washed my soul in South Africa and let it dry in a breeze that's like expanded all the fibers. So I'm this like really flexible gossamer linen, like just I feel so expanded in my capacity to enjoy each day. I have missed and nearly missed so many appointments because I'm not consulting my phone, my calendar, my reminders, because I am noticing the moments. I am listening to the conversations. Even the people who are working on our boat, there's just this flexibility to greet one another and to talk about wherever and whatever the conversation brings up and to have time for each other. The openness of the people here, and it does not matter their ethnicity or their nationality. The Saudi Muslims I've met, the descendants of the Boers, the Brits or the Dutch, the local tribes here, they don't call themselves black, they call themselves the colored people or just colored. That's not an insulting term in South Africa, which is anyone who has any mix of different ethnicities, not just white or black, but Indian as well. East Indian, but it doesn't matter who I'm talking to. The culture in South Africa is, I will not rush you. I will not just ask my question and get out of your face. I will greet you. I will inquire about your family. I will see how your day's going. I will wish you a wonderful weekend. It's kind of reminds me of small town life.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking this week about how that creates a kind of openness in people to just accept and notice the person in front of them.
I found people quite open. Quite open. Not always when you're walking down the street, because that's some are as open as the average American walking down the street, which is not open very much. Mm-hmm. But it does have some of that Midwestern, if I were to compare it, some of that Midwestern rural friendliness. But I'm experiencing it in abundance here. I found it at Cape Town, which is like a metropolis, and I know there's a lot of violence and crime and all sorts of stuff in Cape Town, but there's also incredible amount of friendliness and openness and and helpfulness. Mm-hmm. People looking at each other down the street and saying good morning and flashing smiles, not like an entitlement in general among people, whether they're black or white or colored. And that's been very refreshing to me.
Yeah, it's been.
So I feel like in some weird way, and I don't know how a South African would interpret it, but in some weird way, I feel like people actually treat each other as equals, at least equal respect.
Equally willing to engage in conversation and listen to each other.
Yeah, in that way, it's not like I'm looking down on you. You don't deserve to be in my space. You don't deserve to talk to me. You don't deserve to be smiled at or say good morning. I don't sense that.
I don't either. And it's across class too, wealthy and poor. It's across.
It seems like it. I mean, we've only been here 6 weeks, but trying to compare it to the wide variety of subcultures I experience in America, I mean, that's there's an openness and a friendliness and a kindness here that seems to go deep.
It's a huge culture shock for us coming from Boston and some of the very closed down.
Even in our tiny town of Exeter, people, until we lived there for a year, it didn't seem like anybody would even look at us when we walked by. We'd say good morning, and it was like, why are you pulling me out of my... I'm trying to ignore you. Why are you pulling me out of that? I'm trying to look grumpy, like you're not welcome.
Why are you forcing me to stop ignoring you?
I know. In our experience, it's not like, South Africa. It's like, this is the southern region from Cape Town to Plettenberg Bay. That's our experience, what known as the Garden Route.
We haven't gone to Johannesburg or
we are
Pretoria.
Nowhere in the north. And I know there's a lot of different attitudes and subcultures and unfriendliness in other places.
Yeah,
but this is our experience along the southern coast, and I'm glad to have experienced it.
Me too.
It was unexpected, so that's a treasure.
It is, since we are here for a while. It really is. I have noticed, even today we had to change plans and extend our stay another week to get something done, and I felt so flexible and ready to just stretch into a new pattern of how long we're going to be here. Excited even about it. And I'm hoping that that's going to be how I feel as we continue sailing. I hope that's going to be part of my sailing experience. I know for you, with your personality, you said even to Hamish today, it fits you. You feel more at home here in the way work and conversations happen.
Their sense of time here fits in with me. If I had my way, I would probably gravitate towards the sense of time that is here. Be present with people when they're around.
Yeah.
Not feel pressed by a deadline.
Yeah.
Let the cadence of the sunshine dictate, your day, and put away things in their proper way at night, unrushed, unhurried, so that things are where they ought to be, undamaged and ready for use again. I'm speaking of putting away my fishing equipment and the multiple steps of putting the dinghy away. But yeah, I like that cadence.
I don't feel rushed here. I don't feel rushed by anyone but myself.
Yeah.
And that, it does feel like it's slipping away from me too.
No, that's good. I'm working with this company that, built our boat, and the reason we're spending so much time in Neisno is, well, we're so delayed because we can't cross the Atlantic to head back to the Caribbean and the United States until the end of October at the earliest, because that's when hurricane season dies down. So we're just here through the whole winter, and so we have a lot of time between now and October to hang out. There's like no agenda, and I shouldn't say no agenda, but no pressing schedule. Because our agenda was just get on the boat and start using all the systems and find out what's not working so they can fix it here. Because it's easier to get it fixed here than it would be to sail across and say, hey, we need all this warranty work in a foreign land, and we got to work with third parties and everything. So that's been awesome, and those have been treasures. The things they have fixed, the above and beyond of some of the things they've done that were like, wow, thank you. I know you didn't need to do that, but that is great. It's going to have long-term consequence and positive consequence. But they will even tell you, the reason I said that, even this boat building company, they're being pushed by their bosses over in the factory itself. And then on the ground, they even told us, when do you need to leave by? We need to have a date, because if we don't, some of your projects will not get high priority because somebody else will come along and say they have a date before yours, and so they will get all the priority, and you'll wonder if we're ever going to get anything done. So give us the date, and you will become the priority. I thought, oh, that's great. So they are motivated, and they do know that as much as they want to be relaxed, and as much as they want the cadence of time to move, at a good natural pace, they know that there's work that has to be done if everybody's going to, get a paycheck and go home. So,
yes, and you do feel that hustle from several of the workers who have, I think, more to manage. But I haven't noticed people in South Africa running. I haven't noticed people rushed or impatient. In fact, there's only one guy I saw running. It was Ito, when he left to hook up the dinghy yesterday, and I noticed he was running, and I could just tell. I mean, he runs his own business. He's successful. Yeah. He's a very diligent and high quality businessman, and I admire him. But I thought, he's hustling because he probably has another thing he has to do before the sun sets.
Right.
But he's the first guy I've seen run. I haven't seen any cops or policemen run. I haven't seen any children run. Everyone is at leisure to walk slowly. There's not this rushed way. It's very refreshing to me.
What are some other treasures? I'm sorry, I want you to be able to talk about time, but I know there's other treasures.
Oh, yeah. We can stop talking about time. I can talk about that forever. Well, I mean, what about you? I kind of brought the time thing up. Is there something you feel like is a treasure that you found here? It doesn't have to be a big thing.
Some of what I've enjoyed is that most of the places we go feel like they were built up authentically and not by a giant central planning department. It doesn't feel like everything is cookie cutter and fakey like so much corporate stuff where we came from. Over the last 20 years, all brand new construction has all these the modern flair, and you step into it, whether it be a shopping mall or a new apartment complex or new neighborhoods, and it's designed to almost appeal to some sort of super real fantasy of wow, when I went shopping at that place, I felt like I was in a different world. But I don't feel that way here at all. Everything feels like most of it's grown up very organically over the course of 400 years. And that's how old Neisna and Cape Town are. Especially Cape Town, I know, was founded, I think it was the 1640s. But it's it's just old. And because it's old and has slowly grown up organically according to whatever the economy allowed and dictated, they still had a lot of industry, but nothing feels fake to me. And I really like that. I love that. I love it when everything's not nice. Slap some paint on an old building if it has good bones, Just keep maintaining it, making it look good, and don't be like the one next door has to match it. I really like that.
That reminds me of Exeter too, and some of the old wonderful
New England
towns
has that flavor. I love that.
Very different from Colorado or California.
Yeah. Another thing I valued, I love the exchange rate. The South African rand.
Oh, that's been
the
tremendous.
dollar goes a long way, the South African rand, and it's remarkable because I'm finding things that are so much less expensive here that are very comparable to the United States. And I'm like, how come it costs so much in the United States? Because obviously it doesn't cost that much to manufacture it. And because I'm looking at the thing right now and I see what the cost is. And they even had import duties on it or something. So that's like, that throws me off a little bit. But I love that we can go out to eat in particular. We can go out to eat and it costs us, only 30 to 40% of what it would cost us in the United States. And the food has been outstanding. You could tell.
So much higher quality.
There's very few any corporate restaurants. There's no chains. Of course, there's KFC in some of those.
There were some in Cape Town.
I should say no. There are some chains.
But they were good. I mean, they were very tasty.
But I've just been so impressed with the quality of the food.
Yeah, it takes a little longer to get it. It's not like it's there at your table at 10 minutes because they're actually putting it together, not frozen.
Yeah.
And you can taste the difference. The meat is raised here.
Like the average burger at an average restaurant, you're like, this was an exceptionally good quality meat.
Yeah, it would have been a $30 burger at a nicer restaurant, and it costs, $6.
$6.
It's incredible.
It wouldn't cost $30-$40 at a nice restaurant, but it would cost $20 easy at a nice restaurant, and it's $6. You're like, wow. Maybe I'll have two of them, but like, this is more than I can eat.
That Finn got at the African Bean 2 days ago, and the burger patty was like it was like a 3/4 pound patty. That huge one with like the steak through it.
Enormous. It was like
gorgeous.
$7.50.
It was so tasty.
And then, of course, the sushi's really cheap, which is great. But like, we found the chicken here is excellent. And everybody, they brag that it's free range and all that stuff, but it's not like they're doing it. I don't sense, we have free range chickens because that's what everybody wants these days. I think free range chickens is like, we just raise chickens on a farm the way they're supposed to be raised.
Yeah, I think that's the norm here.
And everybody else has discovered it's cool, but they just do it.
Care and food preparation.
I just sense that. A lot of quality food.
I agree.
And I think because it's actually coming fresh from farms and ranches within 100 miles of the places that you're eating at, because that's what's all around here.
Yeah, I agree. And the Afrikaans, which is the white Dutch descendants who've lived here for 200-300 years, a lot of them are farmers. A lot of them are the ones who are suffering
up in the north
assault, murder, rape at the hands of many, sadly, these terribly. They're the people here who have bought into the lie that they are victims, and so they are taking out what they believe are the crimes of the past on the current white farmers. And
a lot of the race Marxism that we experience in the United States, that I think a lot of our listeners will be familiar with, is here. Here. Being a white male is bad. And when you hear the rhetoric and hear how they're talking about it, like, wow. Same thing. I
saw some tagging today in Niza that said F the police. And I took a picture of it actually for you because I was like, it's interesting, it's written in English, and it's like, it feels like it's imported. It's
straight out of late 80s Oakland, California.
Yeah, it feels like that.
And Compton.
It's not grown here. That dissent is not grown here. It's imported.
It is.
Anyways, though, I don't want to analyze too much until we've had a little bit more time. I do want to point out that I am 100% in agreement with you about the food. The food has been remarkably, unexpectedly good and fresh. And I actually, the more I think about leaving South Africa, even though we have 4 to 5 months still,
you're already grieving.
I feel sad about leaving here. It's been incredible. I can walk down the street and just get a gorgeous loaf of freshly made ciabatta sourdough bread for $1.50. I'm never going to be able to do that again.
I know. And the handmade sausages you got at the farmer's market.
Oh my gosh.
And you come home and be like, with armfuls and armfuls of like sausage and jerky, that you would have a handful of it for the same price back at home.
Yes, there's just so much care about the food, and it's very healthy, and
I'm surprised.
Medicine's cheaper here. You can get an eye exam for $35.
Again, medicine. Why is medicine less expensive? There's a lot of like, there's something shady going on back home with pharma and whatever. Anyway, one thing, and the price points. one thing I want to say about that is, oh yeah, I can't believe, nope, I mean, in my whole life, 50 years, nobody has ever suggested to me back home that, oh, in the middle of the hot summer of the South or whatever in the United States, go to Cape Town where it's winter time.
I know.
And it'll be 60 degrees. It'll be like San Diego.
No one's ever
and the food will be
suggested
delicious. The lodging will be affordable. You get, a real city and cultural experience, and it's relaxing, and you just have a great time. Nobody has ever suggested that.
I've heard so many people actually warning me about how bad the virus is going to be, and it's very unsafe that you're going to South Africa, and watch out, and just a lot of
and all that might still happen to us. Who knows? But
well, yeah, and we have there are like
we've gotten to know so many locals
felt unsafe though,
and we drill them with questions too, like what's it like, and they say you should go try this and try this. I'm like, but is it safe? Is it safe? Is it safe? And we get the whole lowdown about how
where it's safe, where it's not, why it's not,
and when it's not, and all of that.
Risk of prevention, yeah.
So this is
not
all
anything
navigable.
worse than I experienced in Los Angeles, so I just have to say it's not as bad as places in the United States. It seems.
For sure. I mean, I don't walk around at night, and I don't like doing that in any city that I'm not familiar with, or even ones I am familiar with.
I agree.
But those are all just wonderful, wonderful treasures. I mean, if somebody were to say, would you come back to South Africa again? I'd be like, yeah, I honestly, I would in a heartbeat. I'd love to make it a routine. If I had my way, a routine of a place that I return and visit regularly. And
it's going to be a great place to provision from for our trip across the Atlantic. And those of you listening who have been following our journey on social, that we have gone through quite a bit of sickness, and that's been tough. So
4 sicknesses in 6 weeks. It has been brutal.
It hasn't all been roses and rainbows, but I do want to tell you that one of the big things you can pray for us about is we are interviewing and trying to find crew, captain to help us get across the ocean. And we are asking God to show us who can go with us. And currently we do not have anyone. And we do need that. Especially this will be our first time sailing.
I think if you just would take anyone, we could find somebody for sure. But we are asking that God provides somebody that's a really good fit for us. And that's an important part, because you're going to spend 10 to 30 to 40 days with somebody, depending on how far they go on the journey. You're in close quarter. Again, you're in an RV with them, and you're going through, tumultuous seas.
And you're staying up, and you're sailing the watches.
Sleep deprived.
So you are up every, 6 hours.
You need someone that you can get along with, and that it works well with you, and everybody's on the same team.
Yeah. So we need God to guide us there, and I know He will. We'll have a good conversation about what He did for us during that crossing. Those of you who have not found us on social, you can look up Sailing Lady Gray on Instagram or Facebook and find us there. Dale and I are both continuing to look ahead to the things we love doing. I just began to paint again after a month of not painting. And I got out this morning on Lady Gray, and there's just a gorgeous scene right there, the Nysna docks and the canoes and the racing boats and the sun coming over the hills, and I painted that, and I'm just looking forward to painting the food here. And
it's a lovely painting.
Thank you.
Are you going to share that one?
I'll put it on Instagram on my Jonalyn Fincher page. Yeah, I'll put it on Sailing Lady Gray too, if you will let me.
Well, you can put it on Jonalyn Fincher and then throw it in Lady Gray Stories.
Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
I like that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, if you're not following us, please follow us. We are at Sailing Lady Gray on Instagram, and most of our posts get cross-posted over to Sailing Lady Gray Facebook page, which was where we it was our Solation, but then became our Back Porch podcast. Yeah. So if you've been following Back Porch on Facebook, that's where you'll see all the Lady Gray stuff, and it'll be our podcast, but then all the other treasures that we're finding throughout the week that we're posting up.
Yeah, make sure you go in and like a few posts so it'll start to show up in your feed. Because you know how that algorithm works.
And Jonalyn just posted up a tour of our sailboats. So go find that. You'll like it. And it has some cool music that goes with it too.
When we're not having conversations or Sailing Lady Gray, Dale is teaching our children the Bible, and he has a whole curriculum for you to check out so you can teach your own children the Bible. You take a look at that
in the show notes.
Yep. And if you're interested in my watercolors, you can take a look at my shop or my blog. That's in the show notes as well. We also have classes that we put together on how to become a more spiritually healthy Christian. You can find that link in Thinkific in the show notes. And we look forward to having another conversation with you all.
Yes, we need like a cool closing tagline for being the Lady Grey.
We do. But if you have a question about Lady Grey life or any of the other things we brought up, please feel free to send an email to us directly at hello@dalefincher.com. And we will catch you next time on Lady Grey.